All right, awesome. Back for another video podcast, vlog podcast, whatever you want to call it. Today we have Brett Roberts. I'm super excited to have Brett on. Brett's been with the team for a while and came on really, I think pretty much with the outdoor education component from the get-go, and has served a lot of different functions since then. But that's really the focus I think we want to have today. I'm sure people would love to hear us go on about chemistry as well, but I think outdoor ed is probably a little bit more interesting and relevant, and also near and dear to your and my heart. Nothing wrong with chemistry, but we love the outdoors. So let's talk a little bit about that. Brett, first off, how'd you come to Future School, and sort of what's your background in that?
So I was talking with Amelie, actually, when Core Public House was still Core Public House. One day in the summer, I was talking with Amelie out back at the patio there, and she had mentioned that she was running or trying to start some kind of hiking club, something to do in the outdoors in future, and was like, wait a minute, you would be really good for that. And this was like 3.5, 4 years ago, I guess, at this point. And so I was like, yeah, I mean, I can do that. And at the time, I was working full time as a paramedic and on an ambulance. And I was like, okay, yeah. And in my head, I was like, okay, I'll take kids hiking like once a month, and that'll be perfect. And then it very quickly turned from taking kids hiking once a month to now we have a full-fledged outdoor program where we do all kinds of stuff. So that's pretty cool. But I got into the outdoors when I was a kid. I really give that to my parents. Both of them are pretty avid outdoors people in different aspects. My mom's a huge whitewater kayaker and backpacker, and my dad's a climber. So I kind of just grew up outside. I didn't get any other option. There was no like, oh, we're going to sit inside and watch TV. It was always, we're going camping and we're going to go raft this river, or we're going to go hike on this trail or something like that. So it's kind of been, since I was a little kid, I've been in the outdoors. But then professionally, I decided, my mom was actually one of the first certified canine search and rescue handlers, the NASAR, the National Association of Search and Rescue, ever certified as an actual canine handler. And I really looked up to my mom, like I said. And so I wanted to be a search and rescue officer. I was 11 at the time, and nobody lets an 11-year-old be a search and rescue officer. But it turns out that they'll let a 13-year-old be a search and rescue officer. So I spent the next 2 years to kind of appease me. My mom told me, which was a lie, but she told me that I needed to learn how to tie all the knots in the handbook before I could take the test. That was a lie. I did not, but I did learn how to tie all of that because it kept me busy for the 2 years. And then I was able to take the course and test out at 13, and I became the youngest certified search and rescue officer in the nation. And I held that record for a really long time. And then it kind of just exploded from there in the outdoors.
That's awesome. I remember. I think it was. I mean, I'm pretty sure it was the first year at Future School, and we were looking at that A&E and trying to get kind of clubs going and different enrichment activities going. And Amelie said, "Oh, I've got the perfect person," and had roped you in, and you've been on board in one capacity or another ever since. Mm-hmm. And this year we were able to. I was super excited to be able to take you on as a full-time advisor and really bring you on full-time on board. It's been really awesome. Going back to your outdoors, what did you, you grew up in it and kind of, were around it and had two parents that were avid outdoors people. And then as you started at 13, even, you were kind of moving into the professional world of outdoors. And then what sort of other training did you do after that search and rescue? Then what did you go on? I know you have some history with Knowles and various things like that. So what are some other things that you've done? And this will also be for those who might be prospective parents or students wondering, oh my gosh, this person is going to take my kids out in the outdoors climbing or whitewater rafting or on overnight adventures. This is kind of your chance to talk about your credentials, but also just what that process is. There also might be some of our students that are interested in pursuing a similar career, and just kind of lay that out. What does that look like?
So in high school, I played ball sports and team sports in high school. I went to Greenwood. We didn't have any kind of outdoors club, unless you count like ag classes and FFA stuff. And that wasn't really my speed. That was not the kind of outdoors that I like. I don't have any problem with people that are hunters and stuff like that. They're a huge part of wildlife management, but that's just not my speed. That's not what I do. So I didn't really have anything there, but I still spent my time camping and backpacking and all that. But as I got out of high school, I realized, well, I need to do something. And so I took a gap year. Well, I started college and ended up didn't do so hot my first year, first year being away from home. And so I decided after that first year, I was like, okay, I'm going to take a minute to kind of focus in on myself and figure out what I want to do. And really, so I ended up going to Knowles, which if you don't know is National Outdoor Leadership School. And I did a wilderness medicine and rescue semester. And I came out of that with a WEMT, some rock rescue training, and some swiftwater training. I really enjoyed the rescue side of it. It's why I ended up going on to work on an ambulance as an EMT and do all of that stuff. But then from there, I started working with the American Mountain Guides Association and became an American Mountain Guides Association instructor. So I could take climbing. I have climbing credentials that way. And just recently I did all my recertification stuff for that. So it's something I have to keep up. And then, so at that point, I had NASAR, search and rescue, level 2 technician. I had a swiftwater tech. I had my rock rescue stuff and my AMGA SPI, and I'd had that wilderness medicine and rescue semester. And then I really found out that I enjoy teaching and instructing and really just showing people the outdoors. And I guided professionally for a little bit when I lived in Colorado and was guiding climbing trips for any number of clients, anybody that wanted to go outside, basically the company I was working for. And then they really paid for a lot of my stuff to go through and get certified because they wanted to keep an asset on. And then I started teaching wilderness medicine. I'm on the instructor team for both NASAR and Knowles to teach wilderness medicine. And now I teach, that's probably my main course that I teach outside of Future is the wilderness first responder course. And it's honestly probably one of my favorite courses to teach in general. And then I also teach CPR and some other stuff, but wilderness first responder and wilderness EMT are they're my jam. It's my favorite thing to teach.
Awesome. Yeah, you've actually done some of that we've had that at the school actually, and had some of the kids also get some certifications in that under you, right? And for those who don't know, you had a lot of Knowles and NASAR and lots of acronyms. If you don't follow it, it's okay. There's education loves acronyms, but just know that Brett's very, very, very well qualified.
We can boil it down to rope rescue, medical rescue, and water rescue. Yeah. We can boil it down to those three.
Yeah. So if you're out in the woods and something bad happens, Brett is who you want with you to get you out of that jam. Yeah. What are some of, and this is kind of a sidetrack, but I think it'll be interesting for people to know because it's, for people that love the outdoors or people that don't have it all. What are some of your favorite things that you've done in the outdoors? What are some of your best adventures that you've had in your time in the outdoors?
Long multi-pitch trad routes are probably my favorite thing to climb. Last summer, I guess it was 2 summers now. We didn't do anything last summer because of coronavirus. But 2 summers ago, Andy, the co-instructor for Outdoor Ed, he and I went and climbed for a week and a half in Vegas in Red Rocks and put in some really long trad pitches, 15 and 16 pitch routes. And that was just super fun. I got to spend, first of all, time with my best friend, but also, doing a sport that both of us really love. And then kayaking is probably my other true love. Those are my two, is kayaking and climbing. And if you've seen my tattoos, they're climbing and kayaking related. I have the Buffalo River here, and then I have some climbing gear tattooed on me. In kayaking, I've floated the entirety of the Buffalo once, and then I've section floated it hundreds of times and spent a ton of time in my boat just kayaking.
For not that this is going to be, I don't want to get into this being a climbing podcast, though it could be. Explain to people what multi-pitch trad climbing is.
Yeah, so a pitch is a rope length. So most climbing ropes are either 60 or 70 meters. I typically climb with 60-meter ropes, just because that's an industry standard. And then you see all this fun, jangly stuff behind me. That's trad gear, and that's what goes into the rock that we clip into. There's certain ways that you place it, and how it goes in the rock, and you would kind of check quality of the rock and stuff, and then you put it in and you clip the rope to it and you keep going up, and that's what catches you if you were to fall. And so climbing multi-pitch means you're going up more than one rope length. So like solar slab is, I believe, 850 some odd feet of climbing out in Vegas. So it's pretty fun.
Yeah, so that's in, I mean, a lot of times you would see if you go out to a lot of the climbing areas around here, and then maybe because it's not that tall, not that much elevation, a lot of it may be top rope climbing. So it has already something that you can hook up to at the top that's up there, and you're basically climbing a rope's length, and it's, you can rappel down, and it's all kind of, I wouldn't say it's, I mean, it's not, it's exciting and stuff, but what you're talking about is you're up there exposed, hundreds and hundreds of feet up in the air, depending on just stuff that you've set yourself as you're climbing, as you're going up. So it's a whole different ball game whenever you're doing that. But I imagine the sense of like independence and sort of the sense of like you controlling your own sort of destiny is pretty awesome, right?
Yeah, there's that. It's a little weird because a lot of people, almost everybody starts out sport climbing, which is where there's the bolts put in the rock. And that's what you see in most areas in Arkansas. There's still some primarily trad areas because they happen to be in wilderness area or something like that prohibits the bolting of routes. But most routes in Arkansas now have bolts. And that's what you actually clip into. And they're permanently placed in the rock. They're drilled and glued in. But most of the time people don't trust trad gear. But what gets me about that is that you can see the trad placement. You put it there. You know what it looks like. You know what the rock looks like. I can't see what's going on behind that bolt, but I'm much more apt to clip that bolt than I am to clip a piece that I put in, which is kind of strange. But I enjoy both styles of climbing. With our students, we almost always do top rope climbing. And Andy and I do all the leading to get the ropes set up for the kids.
Yeah. So they can just kind of focus on the actual climbing technique and not, but maybe as we grow the program, 9th and 10th grade will be kind of, the beginning climbing. And then as they get into 11th and 12th grade, maybe they can start, setting their protection and doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to see some kids learn to lead climb. We've got one right now that's going to the gym with us pretty regularly. So
that's awesome. That's super cool. Yeah, that's great. So let's talk a little bit about we've touched on some. What are some of the things that kids that are involved in the outdoor ed program at Future School? What are some of the things that they can expect to do? And I know most of we want to talk about the field experience, but then also kind of in the classroom or with the sort of more book type learning. What are some of the things that they would do?
So Andy and I kind of designed the program when we were writing all this curriculum and everything for it to be like a 3-part program kind of. So a third of it is that field experience where they do get to go out and climb or kayak or hike or whatever. And that's great and I love it. But the real meat of our stuff is the middle education portion of it is really focused on public land management and sustainability and ethics surrounding those public lands. And then the third prong of it is jobs in the outdoor industry. So the middle kind of meat of that course is the book learning. The first semester, we really, really focus in on who manages public lands, what does that look like? Public lands belong to all of us, so whose job is it to take care of those? And we tend to tie that in with our field day. This past semester when we took the kids camping, it was in conjunction with the trail day. So they went out with weed eaters and loppers and trash bags, and we did a lot of trail maintenance in an area and just built some trail on public lands. But we really teach them like who the big 5 players are, the Forestry Service, Game and Fish, Reclamation, BLM, and National Park Service. And we talk about each one of those different management styles because it's all public land, but each agency has its own way they do it. And we learn about all that different stuff. And then we really focus in on leave no trace hard after that and ethics in the outdoors. That's what we're in the middle of right now. We're up to Principle 5, minimize campfire impacts. That's our campfire to minimize it. And so they're learning that. I'm a Leave No Trace master educator and Andy's a Leave No Trace awareness trainer. So we really hit Leave No Trace really hard because that's what usually makes the most lasting impression on our kids is changing those ideals around being in the outside for them. And then the third part is outdoor industry jobs because most people, when they think of a career in the outdoors, they immediately go straight to guide or straight to park ranger. But really, you can do any job that you want in the outdoors. You like textiles? Great. Be a manufacturer. You like designing things? Cool. Be a gear designer or a brand designer. Social media. There's anything that you can do in the private sector, you can do in the outdoor industry. And it's actually one of the largest industries in the U.S. It's like $8.8 billion in revenue a year. It's a huge focus of money in the U.S. So.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing I'm seeing a lot, and I follow cycling, of course, more than anything, but so much of those outdoor industries have been based on the West Coast, and it's just so expensive there. And so you've seen sort of a gradual movement of a lot of those companies are starting to move further and further east.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of that right now is Colorado, Arizona, Utah. But now, I mean, Arkansas, and the Waltons are doing some things to try to entice people to be here because it is
Absolutely.
such a it is a wonderful place with a lot of great natural resources and a lot of outdoor adventure opportunity, and then it's really cheap to live too, especially
Absolutely.
California or anywhere out there on the West Coast. So
Yeah.
that's awesome.
I've
Y'all
moved to
are,
Colorado in
yeah,
Wyoming, and then always moved back to Arkansas. So
yeah, it's awesome that you all are talking to them about that, about opportunities and that's a huge. I mean, I did Leadership Arkansas, and that's a huge push in Arkansas. Is our outdoor recreation component of tourism, and it's really becoming a big industry here. So sort of training up and getting these kids embedded in that at an early age is going to help our area, I think, for sure, especially with the teaching sort of leave no trace ethics and things of that nature. So that's awesome. Okay, so what about field experience? What are some of the field experiences they get to have and as part of the class?
yeah. So obviously climbing. Our program's really skewed towards climbing because that's both Andy and I's main sport, and so we take them on several climbing trips. They typically get to do 2 overnight climbing trips. We've already done one of them so far, which is the one that we did at Sam's Throne. We partnered with the Arkansas Climbing Coalition and did some cleanup for the trail area down to Candy Mountain climbing area, which is right near Sam's Throne. And then they camped at Sam's Throne and climbed the next day. They do single day climbing. If we can ever catch a weather window, we try to do some kayaking. This year's been weird with COVID, and we also had a really odd fall, so we weren't able to get in the boats. Hopefully we'll get in the boats in the spring. We have some tentative stuff set up. I'd like to start doing some backpacking trips. That's what we're working on right now, is kind of what that looks like and how to do some longer multi-day stuff with the kiddos. But then I think the one thing that sets our program apart, there's not many other outdoor education programs in the state of Arkansas. In fact, there's only one that I know of besides us. But what really sets our program apart is because I am a wilderness medicine instructor, all of our kids get the opportunity to be wilderness first aid certified for free. So typically, looking at that course, they're going to pay anywhere from $250 to $500, depending on where they go to get that course. And it's a 16-hour WFA certification with CPR. And all of our kids get to take that for free. And if they pass, then they're certified. The first year we had 4 people pass it. And then, so those kiddos are actually due for recert in March if they want to keep it up. And then the second year, our trip was planned the week of spring break, and you know exactly what happened in spring break. And so our trip got canceled and they didn't get to do the wilderness first aid certification because that's when we went virtual for COVID.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's awesome to really hit that certification piece. That's becoming, more and more something that we want to emphasize at Future School, and just sort of, that kids are getting something tangible that applies in the real world, that they can actually take moving forward with them, and obviously, college credit's great, and we push for that too, and various industry certifications. But, you've got to, the more you can add to that sort of tool belt that you have, and I think I may have talked about this before, but there's that concept of, there's tons of people that have X skill, and there are tons of people that have Y or Z skill. But if you can combine those 2 skills, or those 2 interests, or those 2 certifications, then you have something that's more unique and differentiates you. So having that outdoor first aid component and that interest and that background in all that sort of allows you to, whatever your other interests are, to bring that in and kind of combine the 2. Like you were saying, within outdoor ed, you could take graphic design, you could take fashion, whatever you are interested in, and you could actually work in the outdoor industry with that, and have a unique skill set by combining those things. So that's awesome.
Absolutely. Really and anybody that wants to go like into a traditional outdoor education job, so like the job that I do, which is an outdoor educator or a national park ranger or a state park ranger, almost all of those industry standard across the board are going to require at minimum a wilderness first responder. It's very quickly becoming the industry standard. Some jobs you can still get away with the first aid, but almost every single job in the outdoors that's a field experience job is going to require that WFR, which is the next step above what our kids have. But going into a woofer course with a really good base knowledge is what's going to make you pass on that first attempt. So
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, just like applying for a job, anything that sets you apart, you're applying, even if you're applying to the, Harp's grocery store or whatever it is, being able to say, hey, I have this, it sets you apart and makes you, wow, that's cool that you've done that, and makes you shows that you can stick with something, that you can achieve something. So that's awesome. What, talking about, this is what we've done so far. I know that you all have a fundraiser going on right now and trying to get some money together. And what do you see as the future for this program? What are some of your hopes, your aspirations that you want to see moving forward for this program?
So I'm currently in the middle of, or in the beginning stages of my certified outdoor educator course, and that's to certify me as a wilderness education associated outdoor educator. And one of the components of that is a bunch of field days of experience. And I'd really like those field days to be with my general program audience, which is our kids. And so I'd like to take them, I'd really like to see us doing some multi-day trips, more than just, we're going to go out and drive out to Sam's Throne and camp, and we're going to drive over here and do this day, and we're going to drive back and then drive over here this day and do this. I'd really like to see some self-sustained, like true backpacking trips or river trips that and that's what we're raising the money for right now in our Donors Choose, is tents, ground pads, sleeping bags, and backpacks, so that we can take these kids on these longer expedition trips. Because one of the things that Andy and I really pride ourselves on in this program is that we remove the arguably biggest barrier to kids getting in the outdoors, which is cost. Any outdoor sport that you do is expensive. Cycling, expensive. Climbing, expensive. Kayaking, expensive. But if we can provide this stuff to these kids for free and get them doing it out there, then that's going to help them later focus in on that passion. And the outdoors is just a really, really good therapy session for people. It's just anybody that's facing any kind of like mental health struggle, being in the outdoors can really help kind of just clear your head there and have that experience. And so we're trying to remove those barriers for the kids to get them out and just really excited about the outdoors. I mean, you always see on the news or Facebook or whatever that this is the indoor generation. They're always on their phones and they're in front of screens a lot. And we try to take those screens away and get them back outside and having fun and show them that you can definitely have fun in the outside.
Yeah, man, you just hit on like 5 different things that I want to talk about within all that, because that was so much that you just unpacked right there. I think one piece is, you talked about getting the entry to barrier to entry, and that's something that anybody who's involved in any kind of niche outdoor activity, I think there's a push right now to diversify our user base, to get more people involved, because that's how you get, good conservation going. That's how you get, whenever you have more land users and people that are out there doing it, you have more appreciation. And then also, there's so much there to like increasing the number of people that are doing that. And so that's amazing that you are like, I think it's really admirable that you're, pushing that, because like you said, I mean, we talk about that with cycling, it's just like with a mountain bike, I mean, $500 minimum barrier to entry. And that's pretty bare bones, with a sad bike really, to get in, and climbing, all this stuff. I mean, it's all expensive.
Yeah. I mean, you're looking at several $1,000s just behind me in climbing gear.
Exactly.
If you don't have that, a lot of times you can't go do it, because you could do it, but it's going to be unsafe. And to be out there with a trained instructor that knows what they're doing and to provide all of that stuff. I'm going to quote, I used to work for an organization in Colorado called Up and Downa. I'm going to quote their founder real quick. One of my favorite phrases I've ever heard him say is, we don't care who you are, what you look like, what color you are, what size you are, what your ability or disability is. We just want you to come play outside with us. And that's really what we're pushing with our kids.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think you just hit, the other thing, come play outside, why that's so important for people to stay in this day and age. I mean, you hit on some of it, but I mean, people are so connected, so, just constant screen time, constant inside, COVID especially. I mean, we've seen people just stuck in their houses. And I think that's probably one of the encouraging things about COVID that I've seen is, people don't mind being in their house whenever it's their choice to be in their house. But whenever all of a sudden you force somebody to be in their house, it's like people all of a sudden wanted to be outside. And I mean, I think we've all seen, you go on your neighborhood walk and there's more people out walking about than you've ever seen before. We've seen a huge spike in trail usage, a huge spike in outdoor activities. A lot of that was because traditional sports were canceled. I know we'd go to trailheads and, we'd see a family with a bunch of teenage kids. And we're like, well, those kids would normally be baseball games right now, or baseball practice. And that family was sitting around, a baseball diamond watching their kids play, but now they're outside. And so
what happened?
What's that?
The bike boom that happened with.
Yeah. I mean, it's huge bike because it's just everywhere, everybody's buying bikes. And I think that we're recognizing some of the benefits. People are naturally recognizing that. What are some of those benefits that you think of being outside, besides just, reduction in stress, getting away from the screen, maybe helping with anxiety? What are some other things you think?
I mean, just overall health. There's no wrong way. Well, I don't want to say that. There's no way that you have to recreate in the outdoors. Even like going for your neighborhood walk is still recreating in the outdoors. But just overall health benefits, you're getting the vitamin D that you need, that your skin and your body and your bones need. You're looking at your cardiovascular health just by what you're doing out there. But beyond that, just the mental health of doing an activity that you don't have to think about. I know when I'm backpacking, especially if I'm doing like long distance, the only thing I'm thinking about is step, pole. My trekking pole, step. And I'm not necessarily thinking about work stress, or I need to go to this grocery store, or I need to go do this, and I need to go by the bank. I'm thinking about, oh, hey, look at that really pretty tree. And it's just a really good like mind declutter. But more than that, like the facilitation that you can do to build camaraderie and friendship in the outdoors. Like our trip to Sam's Throne, for example, we took a bunch of first-year future kids. We only had one returning future student on that trip, and those kids didn't know each other. We'd been fully virtual all semester. They didn't know each other, and we took them out into the outdoors and let them play with us, basically. And those kids are still hanging out today. Like they didn't come home and then just like disappear off the face of the earth. The majority of the kids that were on that are still engaged in school. They're still coming to school. They're still hanging out with each other that they met on the trip, and they're participating in more activities with us. So it's just building that camaraderie and accountability, because when you build that camaraderie, it builds in accountability. So
yeah, and I know you all are awesome about, creating that environment where people can do that and sort of have team building and just that sort of profound experience, especially when you're throwing climbing and there's a lot of trust issues that are going on there, and pushing boundaries and, trying to get out of your comfort zone. And there's something really profound about doing that with a group of people and getting to experience that together with another, with sort of a little tribe or whatever, whenever you're out there.
For sure. We call them our Merry Band of Adventurers.
Yeah. It's like there's a reason that like all this wisdom comes whenever people like leave and go to the mountaintop or whatever and bring it back down, and that's kind of what you're doing whenever you go out in the woods. It's like you're getting away from all the trappings of our, of our modern society, and you can, some really awesome, amazing things can happen. I think the other thing, like you were talking about hiking along and, your brain's everywhere. And I think that's one of the things is, there's a lot of talk, and I'm really interested in flow state and the idea, and I wish I could get it more with my work. But whenever you're just profoundly in the moment, and kind of time disappears and you're just like so consumed with what you're doing. And for me, I mean, that's like being outdoors is instant flow state, regardless of whether I'm doing something kind of adrenaline based, like, mountain biking and doing descending something really gnarly on a mountain bike, or whether I'm doing something really slow paced, just hammocking or,
walking
slowly on a nature walk. It's just like, it's immediate flow state almost, where you're just like in the moment and things kind of melt away from you, which is just, it's so therapeutic.
Oh, absolutely. Like when I was guiding full time, and even with the kiddos, when we're out there, a lot of times, Andy and I are climbing way, way below our levels when we're out there with the kids, because both of us are stronger climbers. But when we climb with them, they're like, man, if you guys want to do something harder, it's fine. Like, we don't mind just sitting back and watching. And I have the same amount of fun watching a kid go up a 5.2 than I do when I'm at my limit on a 5.11. Like, it's the same amount of fun and excitement for me. And arguably, it's maybe even more fun for me to watch a kid go up a 5.2 for the first time. I may not be hitting my climbing goals, but I'm watching these kids, these light bulb moments for kids that, oh, hey, I can do this.
Yeah.
And then, they come back and they look at something hard and they're like, well, I rappelled off a cliff in the dark. So
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think? I mean, so I think this is one of the things that I think is really, and we talked about this a little bit, I guess, and touched on it. But future school, like some of our kids have some outdoor background and have done some things in the outdoors, but a lot of them haven't at all, right? And so, how do you sell that experience to a kid or a parent who really doesn't have much, experience being outside of the city or being out and walking around? It may even be intimidating, like, why would I want to go do that? There's bugs and it's dirty and it's scary. Might be weird people out in the woods that that are going to be threatening to me or whatever. How do you sort of how do you sell that experience to those people?
So I think we're pretty good at not taking no for an answer from kids. That's our biggest thing. But just getting them. So before we go on any trips, typically we spend a lot of time on group development and group dynamics, and just getting them really comfortable and trusting of Andy and myself, and knowing that, hey, if we tell you what we're doing is safe, it is safe. Obviously, there's inherent risk in anything that we do. There's inherent risk in climbing, cycling. There's inherent risk in walking down the sidewalk. But having people that are mitigated in that risk, and having the alphabet soup behind my name and behind Andy's name that says, hey, we've gone through and we've put a lot of time, money, and effort into knowing what we do. That's what really puts the people at ease, is just letting them know and letting our student testimonials talk for themselves. One of my favorite things that Andy did, I was actually at Knowles when he did this last December, and we were doing parent-teacher conferences, and he made a board of student reviews for the kids to put on there. And the one that we stuck front and center was a kid had told us, we said, did you enjoy our class? And they said no. And then we highlighted that, and if they're not gonna, we're gonna take that and how do we make it better? A kid didn't enjoy it. Cool. What do we do to make it better for that kid? And that's what we want to highlight, is how can we make this program better and better to get these kids outside.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So let's talk about some students. So let's talk about some student success stories. And that's actually good too, because we talk about that also a lot. Oftentimes, the most successful internship is an unsuccessful one, because it lets somebody know, like, okay, I explored this, I didn't enjoy it, and now I can move on in a different direction. But what are some of the success stories that you've had, of sort of surprises that you've had, or anything that you've in since you started with this program?
Yeah. So the first year we taught it, we had a kid that we were doing the orientation, I guess, in the gym, when they all come in and they pick their electives, back when we could all get together and do that. And, everybody had set up their little tables, and Andy and I brought in a kayak. And I don't think anybody actually thought we'd bring a kayak in when we said, hey, can we bring a boat? But we had set up our little tent area over there, and we were chilling in front of our fake campfire that was plastic, and we stole from, at the time, Andy's daughter. And so we had it set up there, and we were sitting there, and there was a really long line for whatever was happening at the table next to us. And I have no idea what it was. I don't really remember. And there was a kid right in front of me, and I walked up and I was like, hey, this line's really long. You want to look at our stuff? And she looked at me and she goes, no, I don't go outside. And I was like, okay. And I handed her the paper and I walked away. And that kid ended up 5 more times that night coming back and asking us a question and walking away. And she ended up taking our program. And then the next year became our TA because she couldn't get enough of it. And walked out of there with her CPR certification, with a hunter's education certification, with a wilderness first aid certification, and is still using that stuff. And roped it into her internship the next year. So
yeah, that's awesome. That's so awesome. I mean, just somebody getting out of their comfort zone and finding something they never even knew that they loved. Mm-hmm. So that's so cool. And then getting some real stuff from it, from those certifications. Yeah. Awesome. Well, that's all super, super cool. I think that, what can somebody do if they want to help out, if they want to donate, or if they want to get involved? What are some asks that you might have for people that are listening?
Yeah. So right now we actually have a Donors Choose open, that we're looking to raise money. We're real close to getting tents, backpacks, sleeping bags, and ground pads for our kiddos. So that's an option. The other option, which arguably I think is cooler than the Donors Choose, is that, so my company, R&H Outdoors, which is a company that I own outside of school, we offer guided climbing trips all over Arkansas. And right now, the proceeds from those guided trips go to funding our program. So if anybody wants to like get outside and have a good time and go climbing, and they don't have the gear, they don't know what they're doing, and they just want to go out and do it, then hit us up and we can get you outside climbing, and then that money will go towards our program after some overhead. And then maybe you are a climber and you've been climbing at Vertical Horizons here in Fort Smith, or Climb Bentonville up in Bentonville, and you want to take your climbing to the next level. We also offer technical instruction classes. Same deal. Those proceeds go to funding our program and getting more stuff.
Yeah, and I was looking at the price sheet actually, and I was like, man, this is absolutely reasonable. I mean, that's for a birthday party or any. I mean, not even getting into the corporate, it's really reasonable for corporate as well. But even for a private individual, a family wants to have 3 kids go and work at Horseshoe Canyon climbing. I mean, the price is not bad.
Absolutely. And you've got that built-in instructor. We provide all the gear. We have helmets, harnesses, and shoes for anybody that wants to go. We provide belay instructions. So even if you're out for a single day climbing, it's not necessarily going to be me that's catching you on the end of the rope. We're going to teach whatever family member, friend, whoever you're with, coworker, how to use that rope safely and appropriately, and they're going to be the ones catching you. So it's also great team building for those kind of stuff. But yeah, birthday parties, anything like that, we can get you outside having fun.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Brett, for sharing everything. One thing we do before we go is our Future School shout out culture, where we shout people out. Although unfortunately, COVID has kind of limited our ability to literally shout people out in town halls. But why don't we go ahead and who would you like to shout out, either in your life or on the Future School community, or who would you give some shout outs to?
Oh man, let's see. So obviously Andy, he's first of all my best friend, but also the person that I roped into running this program with me. And he and I we just have a blast hanging out with each other. And then Shannon has just super stepped up in helping us run stuff, loaning us her kiddo, who we've kind of taken under and taught him how to climb and stuff. And he's coming out and helping us with the kiddos. And she also loans her shop out so we can build stuff that we need for the program. And then just our kids, like, we're goofballs and we have so much fun being goofballs with them. So.
Awesome. Well, Brett, thank you so much. I am super, that this is one of the things, and Allison and I both, and a lot of our community loves what you do and what you and Andy do. And this program has so much potential. I cannot wait to see, where we're at in 5 years from now with this program, and kind of I think we could potentially be, a model program for people all over the state to look at, like, how do you get kids, how do you merge public school with the outdoor experience, and make that something like cost and all that kind of thing. That's a big part of it. And you're figuring out, you're one of those people that takes something and runs with it, and can, you don't take no for an answer, and you don't let barriers, keep you from achieving. So super excited to see where this goes.
Cool. Yeah. So I'm super excited.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Thanks, Brett. Have a great weekend. Appreciate you.
Yeah, no problem. See you later.
See ya.